Lane Place, the home of the Montgomery County Historical Society. This is one of a series of interviews that the Historical Society is making of veterans of World War II. As you all know, this is the 50th anniversary of the beginning of World War II, and we're attempting to record the recollections of veterans of that war. Our plan is to give each interviewee a copy of the tape that he's making, and to place 2 copies of the tape in the Crawfordsville Public Library for future use. These tapes were going to go to the Montgomery County Historical Society as claiming ownership of the tapes and copyrights in them. This series of tapes is really inspired by that series last fall done on TV of the Civil War, when veterans of the Battle of Gettysburg assembled on the 50th anniversary, and those old fellows with their beards and got together and discussed all of their actions back in the Civil War. So that's what we're doing here. And I'm going to start out by asking our subject here, give us your name and your date of birth.
James E. Bell, birth November 13th, 1906.
1906. Well, you're one of the older ones.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Where were you born?
In Montgomery County, New Richmond.
New Richmond. And at the time, what was your background, your family background? Were they farmers, or what were they?
No, they was in the, well, my dad was retail, but he was in the meat business all life.
Up in New Richmond?
New Richmond, then down here, then he moved down.
All right. And where did you go to school?
Well, New Richmond till a sophomore, and then we moved down here, Crawfordsville, the day school started, 1923.
1923, so when you've been in
Junior
in high school.
Junior and senior year here.
All right. When did you get out of high school then? What
25.
25, and what did you do after you after you were through high school?
Worked.
Where'd you work?
Well, let's see. First, I worked at the service laundry. I was driving a laundry truck, and then I went to work for Goodman's department store in 36.
That stood at the corner of,
Yeah.
where was it? Green and Main Street. And there was a dress shop there now, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Where the old store was. And how long did you stay with Goodman's right up to the time of the war?
Yeah, I was stayed with Goodman's till the time of the war, and then I went back there before the war. Well, after the war started, I went back there for 2 or 3 years, and then.
Well, now, were you working somewhere else?
Yeah, at Rock Island Refinery over there, 86th Street, Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm. How long did you work there?
2 years. I was there when the war broke out.
Okay. You went back to Goodman's then?
Went back to Goodman's, and wasn't long till I went to the Army.
All right. Tell us, who's your boss over there at Goodman's?
Delacamp, Emerson Delacamp.
Emerson Delacamp at the time. Now, somewhere along the line here, you got married.
Well, that was in 33. That was before
All right.
service laundry.
And who'd you marry?
Marjorie Chadwick.
Chadwick. She was one of the New Richmond Chadwicks. Is that right?
Yes.
And related to Grady Chadwick, who used to be the auditor when I first came to town. Is that right? All right. Now, at the time that the war broke out, did you have any children?
2.
And what were their ages?
Well, let's see. Sharon was about 7.
9 and 6.
9, and Jay Frank would be about 7.
And so they were kids in school already. Was Marge working then too? Or?
You worked at the treasurer's office, didn't you? Auditor's office.
After a while.
And while she worked there.
Yeah. All right. Now, you were pretty old when the war came along, and how did you happen to get called in the service with 2 children?
Well, I had a low number, for one thing. I was in the 900s for a number. But I think the main thing was I would have been exempt if I would have stayed at the refinery, because they were blending alcohol over there to make ammunition.
Yeah.
And when I left over there, I went back to the department store, and then they cut off all that of that.
Yeah. When did your number come up, or when were you called in? You were drafted, I take it.
Yeah, I was drafted. Well, I was called in March the 1st, 1944.
So that was real late in the war.
Well, the D-Day hadn't been
Yeah.
yet. They didn't have D-Day
All
yet.
right. Now, tell us about your entry into service and where you went.
Well, first went to Fort Harrison, and I was only there 2 days and 2 nights, and they put me on a train, and I didn't know where it was going. We ended up at Camp Walters, Texas.
Camp Walters?
Camp Walters, Texas, at Mineral
That
Well.
was an infantry
IRTC camp.
replacement training center.
Yeah. It was a new camp made out of the rocks and the hills and things out there. And
Uh-huh.
there was nothing there but rattlesnakes and everything.
Estel? That's what they call you, Estel. You
Yeah.
gave us that other name. It's really Estel Bell, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, Estel, you're pretty old for going through that basic training. How did you bear it?
I had no trouble with basic training. In fact, the younger guys was dropping out. I had worked in the department store up and down 3 flights of stairs for 4 or 5 years, and my legs are good. We went into all of speed marches and everything else. I never dropped out.
Uh-huh.
In fact, Dr. Millis, the head of the Americans, he called me in once and he said, "You better drop out or you're going overseas."
Now, you met Dr. Millis along the line. Tell us about Dr. Millis, the people that probably won't realize who Dr. Millis is.
He was our family doctor and delivered both of our children.
And he was down there at Mineral Well.
He was the head of the medicine in Camp Walters.
And that was a welcome sight to see him.
I was on there 2 days. We started through the line until I had a call to come to the infirmary and then to Dr. Millis. He had read my name, saw my name on there. So we started taking our shots.
You'd be interested, Estel, that when I was at Little Rock, Arkansas, at Camp Robinson, I ran into Dr. Millis too. I had the measles and he was the doctor.
That's great.
Now, after you got through basic, what do they want to do with you?
Well, we finished our 17 weeks basic training at 11 o'clock on a Saturday. And that was in June. That was middle or D-Day hadn't been only a few days. And at 1 o'clock they called out 58 names. Mine was the first one out. They gave us a 10-day delay en route. Then we went to Fort Meade. And I stopped off at 10 days and I was in Fort Meade, and everybody told me because I was older I would be sent back for cavalry someplace.
Yeah.
Well, then I was Fort Meade 2 days and 1 night and went to Camp Shanks.
Where's that?
But New York wasn't very far,
Uh-huh.
40 miles. We rode the train all night to go 40 miles. With the lines drawn down, that's what they did. When I got to Camp Shanks, well, my buddies, but then said, "Well, you'll go back from here." So that,
And your buddy, who was that?
well, Roy Carter from Scottsburg was my name.
He was a fellow that you'd known?
Yeah, well, I met him there and he knew Red Hal. He's a good friend of Red Hal's from Scottsburg. So then we really got acquainted with each other. And this was, let's see, we got into Camp Shanks early that morning after running all night. Was there all day. My name was put on KP at 4 o'clock in the evening, and well, before I got there, it was taken off. And they called us all in, they issued us ODs. We knew where we was going then. They took our suntans away from us.
Uh-huh.
So then one of the officers said, "Well, when you get to it, you're gone." So that was, we was there that night, and then the next night we was put on the train, and we rode all night. They told us after we'd been down in Virginia and every place. And we got on the Aquitania boat the next day.
Aquitania?
Uh-huh.
That was one of those old
Old ones.
pleasure ships.
10,000 of us on there.
Uh-huh. And you shipped out?
Shipped out, and I was one of the lucky ones on there. I got to be a gunner on the starboard side, on the 3-inch gun. Got to be on the top deck all the time.
Uh-huh.
I didn't have to go down below.
You didn't go down there and sleep with the,
No.
in the hammocks?
Well, we had the hammocks on the top, but
Yeah.
I had the bottom one on that, and there was 2 above me.
Uh-huh. All right, did you went over in convoy, did you?
No,
Oh.
no, because this boat was still faster than
Yeah, all right. Where did you land?
Scotland, Glasgow.
Uh-huh. And what happened then?
Well, they put us right on a train. We went up to England to a camp they called Broomstock, up close to Southampton.
Down
And we was there about we went there over a week till took us down to Southampton, put us on the boats, and over we went.
Were the LSTs or LSMs or
Yeah,
what were they?
were they? Yeah.
Landing craft.
Yeah. And even that late after D-Day, when I went in, we waited water. They didn't come through.
Yeah, what day would that, do you remember what day you went in?
No, I don't. But according to my book, it must have been early in August or late July.
Mm-hmm. Were the Germans still shooting at them then as they came in?
The Germans did not shoot at us, and the Jerry's was over us, but they were so high that
They didn't bother you?
no, they not when we went in.
Mm-hmm.
They bothered us at night on
Yeah,
the.
all right. Now, what outfit were you with?
I was with the 29th Division, 175th Division, and 175th, and I Company. 75th
Regiment
Yeah,
of
I Company,
the 29th Division.
29th Division.
And what was your job?
The rifle, shoot up. They told me when I got up there that anything moving from me, shoot.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was, a rifleman, and Doug Fox.
You were using M1s by that time.
Oh yeah, that's a good rifle.
Mm-hmm. And tell us about your progress and what happened after that.
Well, after so long, we went up there. We went through St. Louis, still the rebels, and then I think Barry. Well, I know Barry was another battle, but it had been taken. We bypassed it, and then we started in. I remember we took us up the front line, so before we could hear the rifle fire,
Mm-hmm.
kept us overnight, and next morning at 4 o'clock, orders come and said, you're going to see things that you've never seen or dreamed of, and you're going to the front. And we did, and thought of the dead soldiers all the way up there. We wasn't very far back, and we had to step over. Well,
Dead soldiers.
yeah,
Germans
or Americans. They hadn't got to them yet. See, the battle was beat. We went up there, and the hedgerow.
Where was this?
Well, that was in France, in the hedgerow fighting.
Uh-huh.
Very on south. And I was there for several days. I can't remember just how long. That hedgerow fighting, that was the scariest part of the whole war.
When you speak of hedgerow, what do you?
Well, see, in France, and you read the hedgerows, they had them build up hedgerows just like you'd build a dam. A thing up here and then hedge over it. See, they're around. Every field is that way.
Mm-hmm.
You may only go part here at the city building to the next one. And if you're reading that book, tanks couldn't even bust them open. And you'd have to then you stand there and shoot until it's in, then they give you money. You went over and you run. If you was one of the lucky ones, you didn't get hit, something like that. And then they got back, and then it got so there that, well, we jumped hedgerows. We called it jump hedgerows for 2 or 3 days, and then they retreated pretty fast.
Uh-huh.
And I remember after we come out of that, we didn't know where we was going until they took us down and we walked through Rennes, France.
How do you spell that?
R-E-N-N-E-S.
R-E-N-N-E-S.
And the people there just cheered and threw flowers to us and everything.
Uh-huh.
But we walked down and got on the trains. And then we headed in a train down to Brest.
To Brest?
Yeah, that's the way the south.
On the sea coast?
Had us clear down to the bottom of France, yes.
All right.
And that was the strong submarine pens for France too, and they had taken that. And that's
tell us about what time this was.
This must have been in late July.
And you'd already gone through all this hedgerow fighting?
Well, yeah, we had, well, it must have been August. It's got the date right in there, book I have to turn
Yeah.
yeah, this was out of the hedgerow fighting then.
Uh-huh.
We was, but,
Did you lose many of your buddies in the hedgerows?
yeah, that's where you lost most of, in hedgerow fighting.
Fellows that you had come
Yeah.
attached to?
Well, no, there was several you're close to, but you didn't have time when you was up there to be attached to many of them. You just,
You were probably a replacement then if you
yeah,
came in
we
late.
was one of the first replacements there.
Uh-huh.
They told us we was one of the first replacements after the Battle of St. Louis.
Uh-huh.
And we went down to Brest, and I remember we was oriented, the Battle of Brest, they said we would probably take us a week, and we'd get out 8,000 prisoners. Well, it took us about a month.
Uh-huh.
And they had to bring in the 8th Division and some more to help us, and when we got through, we got out 60,000 prisoners.
60,000
See, they had that big fort down there, and when we got there, that big fort and an underground fort that went, that had an elevator down to it.
Uh-huh.
That tells most about it. It was, well, the most of the fighting after we got in Brest was snipers
Mhm.
shooting from the fort.
Uh-huh.
We cleaned out the troops really, and
Cleaned out the snipers, you mean?
well, eventually, but first, most of it. But this was let's see, on 2 days we couldn't move. We got into edge of Brest, we couldn't move, just fire all the time. Eisenhower backed us all out and sent, if you remember, 5,000 planes over 2 days in a row.
Hmm.
And they just dropped bombs constantly, the big bombs with the big bombers. And they just knocked the city down, and then we went in.
Uh-huh.
But they didn't, those bombs didn't knock that fort out. Most of the forts we had to knock out were done with flamethrowers. I mean, the first.
The flamethrowers.
Yeah, and when we went through that.
But the infantry had to follow the flamethrowers.
Oh, yeah, they were flamethrowers with tanks.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way we went through the Maginot Line, flamethrower.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, did you see, did you come face to face with a lot of these prisoners?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it did. In fact, I helped take some of them back.
What was their feeling? Were they resigned? They were giving up, or?
The young ones, the SS troopers, you couldn't even trust them when you take them back. The older ones was kind of glad to get out. Most of them had been up, a lot of them had been up in Russia in different places. But these young SS troopers, you couldn't trust them. You couldn't even blink your eyes and trust them, even right in front of you.
Uh-huh.
But then after we got up, well, it was a long time after that, then they got ready to get up. But a lot of these prisoners, we'd take them back and put them in trucks. We just toss them up in the trucks, and the officers would keep telling us, you're crazy if you're fighting us, you ought to be on our side fighting the Russians. That's what they would tell us.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I wondered maybe they was right. That's right, they did.
You did, what about the language barrier? You're talking, were they talking English, or were you talking German?
They talked English, all of them did.
The officers?
Yeah, and when we went through Holland, all of Holland, people there talked English as well as we did.
Mm-hmm. All right, now, the Battle of Brest, you took 60,000 prisoners.
That's what they told us, about 60,000.
How-
I didn't see all of them, but I believed them.
How'd they manage all those people?
Oh, I don't know.
How'd they feed them?
Well, they took them back. I gave them rations, K-rations.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you see did you get in there to the fort at Brest?
No, I went inside. None of us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe the 116th, I think some of them got in after it was taken.
Uh-huh.
No, I didn't. I knew, well, I saw it from the outside. I could see them shooting at it.
Uh-huh.
But if shells wouldn't phase it.
Now, the Brest is a seaport.
Yeah.
Could you see out over there and see the ships?
Well, after we got into the city and got through on the side we could see out there.
Uh-huh. Were there battleships and that sort of thing?
There wasn't too much out there because it was submarines. I think they moved it.
A submarine base, was it?
Yeah, that was a submarine base.
Mhm. All right, now, anything more about Brest we ought to know?
No, after that was over, they put us on a train and took us back up through Paris and up to Liege, Belgium.
Well, how do you spell that?
Liege.
Oh,
We went on a train from there up to Paris into Liege, Belgium, and then branched out from there, and we was the north flank of the first battle in Germany, Aachen, and that was a tough one. But we didn't go in the city.
Yeah.
We was just a holding position out
but did you have combat there?
there. Yeah, we had some combat. Ours wasn't as tough as one trying to take the city. They wasn't going to give up. That was the first battle in Germany. And then our outfit, 29 swung north all the time. From there we kept it going north.
North of the main
forces
forces?
of Germany. We ended up we went on up through there. We was up, the town you see there, we jumped, everything was Alderhoven. It wasn't Alderhoven. It wasn't a big one, but that's where we got our showers. We took a big mine and they had showers. And we finally got a shower there and things. And we stayed there a day or two.
Showers, you mean?
Yeah, the mines had showers. They pulled your stuff up on a chain. Hundreds of them. And they let us all get a shower there before we went on.
Why would they have showers in the mines? What was that?
Well, I suppose all mines have shower rooms.
Oh.
Here too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and happened then. And then we was, for a day after that, we kind of slowed up. And I remember a couple of, they let us go back up there one time to take showers. And we were in.
I take it from that up to that point, you hadn't had much chance to wash up.
Well, after Brest, they let us go out there in the sea, and that was salt water. There's no soap. We just rinsed off. Out in the sea, just openly.
But your clothes get ready so they'd stand up.
Well, they kept the new clothes and dry socks constantly.
They did.
On the front line. We didn't have to have our clothes laundered.
Yeah.
They brought us new ones.
Now, was it getting pretty cold as you got up there?
Not real cold. It wasn't, even on Christmas Day, it wasn't real cold. It was just like fall, frozen out there. But it wasn't that cold. Really, if I remember right, in January it got pretty cold. But I never remember anything like 0 or anything like that.
Didn't have any trouble with frozen feet or anything
No,
like that?
they kept us dry socks all the time. They'd throw us out a dozen pairs sometimes, each person. See, it got so, after you're fighting those hedgerows and things, you didn't carry a pack. All we carried was a raincoat and dry socks and things. And then loot that we can pick up. We carried all the loot.
The what?
Loot.
Loot? What kind of loot were you?
Well, after we got to Germany, every time we went through all the jewelry stores.
You did?
And the next thing you throw it out and pick up something there, you didn't know what was good and what wasn't.
Well, what'd you do with all that stuff?
Well, when I got hit, it was supposed to follow me, and everything was gone. Nothing caught up with me. So in the evacuation hospital, I expect that's where it ended. That's pretty good stuff. I had a German Luger, and I lost it.
Now, you were on the northern flank in Germany. Did you go through any more fighting after that?
Well, yeah, we fought all the way. See, we were going to cross the river at Jülich, which we did.
At where?
Jülich.
Jülich.
Yeah, that was one of the...
How do you spell that? J-U-L-I-C?
I-C-H, I think.
I-C-H.
That was one of the hard, well, we fought coming through Holland, this one up there. Maastricht, Holland was one of the hardest battles. We have a cemetery there, 29th Division had a cemetery, Maastricht, Holland. And that was one of the toughest ones. They were all dug in trenches. They had trenches there. We would run them out in the day, and they'd run us out at night. 11 days and 11 nights before we got them out of there, before we got to the little town of Borheim.
Out of the trenches?
Yeah.
You'd run them out of the trenches?
In the daytime, they'd retreat.
Yeah.
Early morning, they'd retreat. Then at night, here they come. And we had to retreat. We didn't know how to do it.
Uh-huh.
And I remember the saying was there every night, every time we get there, and every time we were down, we'd say, wonder what Gabriel Heater's saying tonight.
Gabriel Heater?
Yeah, he was one of the, now, the news commentators.
Yeah.
And we'd all say, wonder what Gabriel Heater's saying tonight. They'd run us back 2 or 3 rows. And then finally we got to the town of Borheim, and that was a tough one. Borheim was so close to the Roar River, we could see it.
Mm-hmm.
We could see the Roar River and see Julie from there almost. And we were there for several days, and that was a tough battle because that was their last stronghold.
Borheim.
Borheim. That was their last stronghold across the Roar River. They retreated every place there. So they come with tanks and everything, and it just kept it coming. I got a Bronze Star there. That's where I got my Bronze Star.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we had to go get the artillery, but had Seabrook in on the tanks. They would annihilate it. We got to Borheim. We left with a full platoon, and when we got there, we had 11 left.
A full platoon was how many people?
Well, it's 37, 36, 37, I think. We had 11 men left in ours.
And were they most of them killed?
Well, could be. I don't know how many, but my friend Carter told you about that's where he got it.
Mm-hmm.
Right outside of that, coming in there.
Yeah. Now you spoke about the Germans threw everything at you, but you came at them and drove them off. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
they had their tanks. Those 88s, they fired one man. And in Borheim, we had to bring the artillery. They got in the town, and we didn't have our bazookas, nothing like that would knock them out. Those big Tiger tanks. They brought the 105s, the artillery, right in on the streets of Borheim and knocked the tanks out. See,
No, you mean the Americans
brought the artillery, brought their 105s and 155 right in there and fired point blank out and knocked them out.
Mm-hmm.
See, our first tanks for a long time over there wasn't big enough, and they had a 75 on their tanks, and that didn't bother
75 millimeter gun.
Yeah, millimeter. So finally, they brought the big General Pershing tanks over there with the 90 millimeter guns, and the Tiger tanks had to run then.
Mm-hmm.
They could knock the Tiger tanks out.
Yeah.
And finally, after Borheim, we moved right up on the river, right across the river.
Roar River.
Yeah, Roar River. Waiting to cross it, see, and we was there just before Christmas, and Christmas. Yeah, I guess it was their Christmas. And they was playing records, White Christmas, Bing Crosby, and all of them across the river from us, so we could hear and tell us back about what our wives and everybody was doing back home. You better oh, you should have. Of course, that was part of their propaganda. But they played those records of everybody, Bing Crosby and everybody's day and night. The nights particularly keep away. And now the snow will come on then. There was snow there, that's right. Because we had to watch them. They was running patrols across the white island, trying to get around behind us with these patrols. And we, of course, at that place we was thinned out, and we had a telephone there, communication in East Fossil. We was about, this good little ways apart. See? And those patrols come over, and we catch them, and we get rid of them.
You'd have to get rid of them.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we had to teach them that they couldn't get behind us.
Mm-hmm. Now, communications, what kind of communications?
Well, it's just like a telephone. They strung a wire through there, and so it was, and so forth down there, but so far.
Between the foxholes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was there? See, but they was there a long time. We had went way back, and there's a picture in there of training, crossing, way back in France, or not in France, someplace there. Training for 2 or 3 days, and just about the time we were supposed to jump to get Julie, they opened the dams up above it. You couldn't possibly get it. It tells you how many million tons of water came down per day. We couldn't. So they had to postpone that for I don't know.
I mean, they flooded
Yeah,
the plain down there
yeah,
so that you
had
couldn't
postpone,
cross.
postpone that for almost 2 weeks before we could go across.
What, did the water finally drain off and then?
Well, it got low enough that we
Went
went
in.
across. See, they put these, they had these small landing craft. The first wave was went across in those. And when we got across there, I went across one of them. And I tell you, there's some of them went across, started crossing these single boats, but they didn't make it. When we got across the other side and taking that bank, our engineers pulled the bridge up.
Pulled the,
Well, they had made one of these swinging bridges.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
yeah,
And they had done that, and we hadn't any more land the other side. They pulled that up. Now, a bunch of them went across, a lot of people went across.
what do they call those Bailey bridges or what are they?
Now, I forget what it's in there. It's like
Yeah.
a suspension bridge.
Yeah,
But they didn't last too long. They hit it and busted it.
I
And
mean, the Germans hit the bridge.
yeah, knocked it out after. A lot of them got across first, but they built another one up right quick.
Uh-huh.
And we fought in Julie there for, well, see, we was a big division. We had 115, 116, 175th, and we were a 18,000 division. See, we scattered out. We didn't run too long taking it.
Uh-huh.
Then after Julie, why, see, I set my foxhole at Julie when the planes come over and knocked Cologne down. They were using a new bomb, aerial bomb they call it. They'd letting it loose right over us. It was only 18, 20 miles to Cologne from where we were.
Uh-huh.
And we thought that's where we was going. We went out and we went so far and then we swung north. And we went north to Mönchengladbach and right.
Where?
Mönchengladbach and right. R-E-H-Y-T or something like that. Two big cities. Gebel's home. We did.
Uh-huh.
And we didn't do too much fighting all the way up there. In fact, after we cleared out Julie, the actual combat was kept sparse for us.
Mm-hmm.
And we went from there on after we cleaned up. That was, the funny thing about that at Mönchengladbach, they took Gebel's home. Some of them found a big warehouse, a 5-star Hennessy cognac.
Oh.
And it was full. And everybody, their packs was nothing but cognac. And Charlie, well, we called him Volunteer Charlie, our General Gerhardt. And that night, well, we got in there in the morning. That night, boy, I worked down the line. Everybody could keep 2 bottles, get rid of them. Next morning, he come over there. 8-man patrol took the whole 29th Division that night to celebrate. Bicycles and that thing, I'll tell you, it was full of bicycles. Everybody was drinking cognac and riding bicycles all over the place. Pretty big city. And went into Gebel's home, and it'll tell you in there that the beds, everybody got in their beds with their shoes, muddy shoes and things. They still had a lot of furniture in there and things.
Oh.
So then we...
You didn't get Goebbels, though.
Yeah. Plus, he was there, head of the Air Force there, you know, he was a general of the Air Force. And
You're thinking of Goering was head of the Air Force.
well, then Goebbels was...
He was a propaganda minister.
Well, it was his home.
Goering or
No,
Goebbels?
Goebbels.
Goebbels, okay.
I remember. And then we went from there out. Well, we was relieved there by the 75th Division, or one division went through us for a few days. So then it wasn't but a few days we stayed there, and then we went for the Rhine. And they called it a horseshoe, you know, where it is way up north. And we crossed the Rhine on a horseshoe, but we didn't have any trouble when they were shooting on that. And then when we crossed the Rhine, I was in Dusseldorf.
Dusseldorf?
Dusseldorf. And,
Yeah.
and Essen, we went through Essen, a big Ford plant there.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went on north up to Munster.
Mm-hmm.
And Munster had been knocked down and everything, except they had some big hospitals. They never touched the hospital up there.
Now, Estel, you're talking about doing all this moving. Was this on foot or you were riding on?
95% of it was on foot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, if you went too far, they would take those trucks and they'd take you up so far. But no, I just walked across France, except down to Brest, all through there. And all through Holland, we walked. See, fight for a day or two, move up for, and you've got to clean these towns out. These small towns, you're going to clean these towns out and dig in, and maybe the next day at night you'd hit another one the next day. We always knew where we was going the next day, because at night they shelled and set them on fire. We could see the fire, and we knew what town was over there, which one we knew was going on there. Then we take it the next day and we dig in, and then we didn't know. We just kept moving like that for 8. The biggest train rides we had was down to Brest and then back up to Bell, and that was about the only time I was on a train.
You did do a few times you rode on a truck, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, when was the war about over?
We wasn't doing it. We hadn't had to do too much fighting. Just hit spots that somebody got. And at Munster, when we got up to Munster, and we was there for, no, I don't remember just how long. We was there for 2 or 3 days tonight. And we was headed north and east. City of Warrendorf, I'd say, was size 11 or
Warrendorf.
Warrendorf hadn't been hit by a shell. They even had electricity yet. And that was at night. Get out of there, and we confiscated some weapons from the Germans, and the Russians. We'd freed a Russian camp, and they were fighting a little. And we was holed up in the rooms of the house, all those, because it's pretty nice. And we went back to our rooms, and we had a young kid from Nashville, Tennessee. He was only 18, been a replacement. He had a Burp gun.
Burp
gun. Shoot out 30 rounds.
Automatic gun.
Yeah, he shoot out 30 rounds before you knew it. And he was fooling with it, and I was sitting there, and the other guy said, he's fooling up here. And we told him he didn't know how to do it. Told him, one of the guys said, leave it alone. We'll unload it for you now. About that time, he ripped off. He just missed my ankle, and got one of the boys in the leg, and another boy scratched him pretty bad.
Put you out of commission?
Put me out of commission. They picked me up and carried me to the first aid station where I was there for 2 of us. Go there and put us in the truck, and we went back to the evacuation hospital. 75 miles back. We got back there.
On a truck?
Yeah. We got back there 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock, something like that. No, 4 o'clock. And when I got in there, they said Roosevelt had died, just died. So I got hit the day that Roosevelt died. So then I got back there, and they kept me there for 3 days a night, and then flew me back to Birmingham, England hospital. And I was there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, and we come back on Congo. But I heard afterwards that in this evacuation hospital that Dr. Wallace was there, and this Jane...
That's Dr. Wallace from Crowdersville.
From Crowdersville, and Jane Hubbard.
Jane Hubbard.
A nurse.
Yeah.
I heard she was
We've
there.
done her brother on this series here.
Oh, John?
Yeah. Was it Jack?
Yeah.
Jack.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't know, but we had heard that Dr. Wallace there, and that Jane Hubbard was a nurse there from Crowdersville. I didn't know that. They didn't know me.
Did you meet any other fellows from your hometown on your course of your travels?
No, I tried to, Dr. Cook's son was in the 2nd Armored Division. See, we were the 29th and 2nd Armored and the 30th. Made all these spearheads. And I had word that we were stopped for a day or 2, and I went over to the 2nd Armored Division and looked for him. Everybody told me that he was son of
Tom Cooksey.
Yeah, they knew him, and I got back, and somebody said, somebody here from your hometown looking for you. And I found out later he was over looking for me. Yeah, so we missed each other.
His dad, Doc Cooksey, was Mayor of Crowdersville.
Yeah.
All right. Now tell us, you mentioned your commanding general. What did you say his name was?
Well, it's Charles Gerhardt, and we call him, we have looking with Volunteer Charlie, because we said we had to spearhead every attack. And every time they wanted, somebody got stalled and they had to go, we felt like we had to go. Yeah, that was his name, went around there, Volunteer Charlie.
Now what kind of did you ever meet the guy?
I saw him close, but one thing, when we was up there with this Roar River up in there, General Eisenhower came up.
Did you see him?
Yes, I saw him, and I was in the front line right here, and he walked right through, and he spoke to every one of us.
Uh-huh.
We were lined up, not a regular inspection, and I could have reached out and touched him.
Uh-huh.
He was up there, of course, there wasn't much rifle fire then, but he was close enough to get hurt.
Yeah. What did you think about the officers and the fellows you served with?
The ones I had was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any of those hard-nosed ones, like I said, General Patton and all that. Of course, you don't get back here when you don't get that command from them direct. It comes down from somebody else. But our lieutenants and captains our lieutenants was great. They were leaders, you know, for a platoon or something.
Well, they weren't scared to get up there and...
When we lost 2 good ones going out first.
Uh-huh.
And we lost, I probably could have been a buck sergeant, squad leader, and I didn't want it, no way. Every time we took that tactic, squad leader was hit first. We lost every tactic we went in, we lost a squad leader and have a new one.
Uh-huh.
I didn't want him.
Tell us about the losses of your division. How many men were in the division? How many dead were there?
Well, there's supposed to be around 16,000 out of the
Killed.
29th for the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
That cemetery over there, that Carter's buried over there. That cemetery, they say, is about 16,000, 29th Division.
29th Division had 16,000
In the cemetery.
graves in a cemetery
That's what they say.
in France?
Yeah, well, in Holland,
Holland.
right around Maastricht, Holland.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't too many years ago, they invited the parents and the families of all those guys over there, remember? And they were guests of the Dutch people, and Carter's family went over.
Carter. Now, that was your friend from Scottsburg. All right. Now, Estel, did you have any close calls like that?
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about it.
I think the closest call was we going up to an intersection of the Olive Road. The main thing we was supposed to take, and we had to go up over a hill, raised, to get there. Turnip patch. Well, we crawled in those turnip patches.
Turnip patches.
Yeah, Germany was full of turnip patches. And just as we was getting up there, mortar shells was just coming in right and left. And one lit out in front of me, but not too far in front of me. Almost knocked me down. I got the concussion. One man over here and a man over here got the shrapnel. About the man on this side got tore him to pieces, tore his legs to pieces. Didn't kill him. But I didn't get a scratch there, only concussion. And then there was just a lot of time. Well, Warheim, where we dug in out there was baled hay.
Mm-hmm.
And we all put baled hay over the top in front of our foxhole. And a lot of us and I had a mortar shell hit right on the baled hay, but it don't come through that.
The baled hay would stop?
It stopped those mortar shells. A lot of them have it. If we hadn't had that baled hay, it would have been a lot more to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there, that was in the harbor. They didn't have their hay all up in straw stacks, and as it going through there, snipers get it. We had, and there'd be straw stacks out there and things. On a place we figured was the snipers. So some of us had to carry tracer bullets. Tracers. Yeah, and we had to shoot them in those straw stacks and set them on fire. We could just pick up the snipers out.
Mm-hmm. What you do, you see a straw stack, you'd know that'd be a sniper back.
Well, if they're shooting at us, we knew that there's in some of them, but we'd set them all on fire with tracer bullets.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody liked to use them tracer bullets because, boy, it was tough to clean your rifle afterwards.
Uh-huh.
But I learned, and you learn some of that in basic training, I learned to clean my rifle at night. I'd take my rifle apart in the dark and clean it, keep it working. Mm-hmm. That M1 is the best rifle. They never have a better one.
Yeah.
You could zero that in and you could knock a fly off of boats.
Mm-hmm. Did you, any other close calls that you remember? Anything happened there at Brest?
Well, Brest, yeah, we were all ducking and hitting the streets from snipers and things from this. I mean, it's just one of those, somebody was getting it all the time. Mm-hmm. You just never, everybody in the wrong place at the right time, you got it. And I think if he hadn't brought those 10,000 planes in those 2 days, we never would have got it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Brest, and then there's a lot of times that you shells that line around you, and rifle shells just go right over your head and crack.
Yeah. Were you wearing your helmet all the time?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now,
I think my helmet had a couple of dents in it from shrapnel.
uh-huh. Now, did you make some close friends over there in your service?
Well, we wasn't in there time enough to make friends only after it got hit. I met some people, and coming back on the boat, we were litter paging. They made us 2 there and 2 on this side. One of the fellows over at Frank Crossetti, shortstop of the New York Yankees' brother.
Uh-huh.
And we got to be real good.
Crossetti.
Crossetti. He was a shortstop of the New York Yankees, and his brother, and we got to be real good friends.
You ever hear of any of those fellows since you've been out of the service?
Oh, for a good long time I did, didn't I? What was his name? I started at Shep or something like that. Yeah, I heard some stuff. Then I suppose they're gone or forget it just like we did. I sent them Christmas cards and they sent them to me. Now it's all 46 years that both of us gone, actually.
Yeah. Do you have any reunions? Does your outfit have any reunions?
Every Labor Day weekend, 2 or 3 days. They're all in Pennsylvania or around there in Maryland. See,
ever been to any of those reunions?
No, I should have gone. The 29th Division is a Maryland division.
Uh-huh.
It was called that. We've talked about it a few times. We never did go to it. It's every Labor Day. We always did.
Yeah. Now, after you got home from the service, what did you do?
Well, see,
well, tell us about how you got out. I suppose you had to be hospitalized.
Yeah, they brought us back and put us on a train in New York, and I went through southern Indiana and the train then stopped to Jackson, Mississippi.
Uh-huh.
And the hospital down there was a bone hospital. Beautiful, big hospital. And they kept me there for 3 months. And told me, see, I don't have much heel bone. If you see my other shoes, they're all run over. It just goes like that. Which they told me I was the luckiest man in the world that didn't been an inch higher and got
you
my
mean that from that gunfire?
That gunfire shot the heel bone off.
Uh-huh.
So I had to stay down there. They decided whether the scar tissue was growing over, and they're going to put a plate in there. So then finally they sent me down. Well, I got to come home for 10 days from there, didn't I? Yeah. I got to come home 10 days in there. So I got a furlough to come home, providing I use my crutches, see.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you try to carry a big bag and with crutches. So we got up to the railroad station where it was. Of course, they had a soldiers thing there. So I went up to one of the ladies there and I said, I'd like to trade these crutches for a cane until I get back. I said, I can't handle this. And she laughed. So they took my number and put my name on it and everything else. And give me a nice cane, and I came back with a cane.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went back there. I went in to trade my crutches, and the crutches was gone. And she said, well, they picked your crutches up. Picked all you guys' crutches up. So I went back out there and went to my bed, and I hadn't any more hip to where my bed was. And boy, I had to go into the doctors, and they went through x-ray and everything. I was going to be in 45, but I hadn't done any damage to it.
Oh.
So they kept me there 3 months and then sent me back to Atterbury. Yeah. Well, when I went back to Atterbury, all I had to do was play volleyball every morning, 2 or 3 hours to work that.
Strengthen it.
Yeah, strengthen it. And I was there just 3 months.
When did you get out finally?
November the 9th. Yeah, November the 9th of 45.
45. And then did you go back to Goodman's?
Yeah.
For work? And then after that you started your own store, as I recall.
Well, I was back there 5 or 6 years, and then we bought the pal out.
Yeah.
And we had that for 14 years and sold it to that chain outfit out of it.
Yeah. And for a while you were county clerk.
Yeah, I went back to Goodlands for 2 or 3 years, and then county clerk for
You were county clerk.
2 terms.
All right.
And ended up the Chamber of Commerce 10 years.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. That came after the county clerk.
Yeah, well, I left the county clerk. I had a year and a half to go yet.
Did you? And took the job as...
Yeah, they didn't want me to take it because I knew people, and I took it.
Yeah.
Didn't do too much, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Just 10 years to the day I was there.
Uh-huh.
Retired.
Now, you're, all the while you had a wife back home, I suppose, was worrying about you plenty. Was there much correspondence going on?
Well, we could write when we get a chance, and she would. I think the time that I was in the hospital, she didn't hear for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks.
6 weeks.
Was the mail, was it, you were moving on the move all the time, was the mail, did mail catch up with you?
Yeah, I think it did pretty much, and she'd send cookies and stuff, and they'd catch up with me. Sometimes I'd get one of them before the other guys got it.
All right. I think that what I want to do now, Estel, let's take a look at your book there, see if you've got any maps or anything that
Yeah,
would be.
there's maps. Yeah, no, that's.
Oh, I wanted to ask you, you got the Brown Star. What was that for?
Well, it was at the city of Boron in there. It's in there.
Yeah.
And that's when tanks was coming in and shells, and we were getting artillery support.
Mm-hmm.
They were going on it. Well, there was an opening, like a commons, they called them that.
Mm-hmm.
The artillery advisor was down there probably 2 or 3 blocks at least, maybe 3 blocks. And all communications had been knocked out, see, from us, from our place. So our lieutenant sent a man down. He said, we got to get the artillery to stop those tanks. See, they were coming across the Ruhr River. And he got killed. See, they could shoot close enough to shoot rifle fire through there. So he said, I need a volunteer to get to there. Well, I was there. I thought it was going anyway. I said, I'll go. And I took off, and they didn't have me.
Mm-hmm.
And I got there to the artillery, to the officers, and so they went up to the 2nd floor of a big building that's right there. And he gave told them where he has and everything. And boy, it wasn't long that artillery come in and those tanks went back. They just knocked them out. They was to shoot the big stuff in them.
So you volunteered to go in there and...
Well, I tried to cross that common. That's where they get you. I volunteered, yes.
You crossed the common and got into the building and got up where the artillery spotters could...
Yeah.
I
thought it was going anyway, so I better try that.
All right. Have you got a map in here that'll show some of this?
Well, see, this is down to Brest.
Yeah, well, now we're going to have to show this. We're going to have to...
Oh, and see, every place we was, there's Julie.
Yeah.
See, each individual map for each battle in there.
All right, now let's look at Brest here.
You see, now there's Brest. It shows
where this is the city down here?
This is the city down here. And see, these marks is where our lines of troops were.
Mm-hmm.
See this out there?
Yeah.
And it tells you the 116th, 175th, 115th, and all that.
Where was your division? Where was your regiment?
Well, we were right outside here. And one of their 175th stayed outside there for a long time until he knocked it down.
All right, now we've got another map over here. What's this?
Let's see.
The western.
Well, this is Cologne. Now, this is Julie here. This is where we're sitting here, see?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, see, there's Lige Belgium back there. Aachen. That was a tough battle. And this is Julie where we go. This Gellerkirchen. I want to tell you something about Gellerkirchen. We were in that city. It's a pretty good sized city, not a big one. Big white main street. Half of it was in Holland. The middle of that street was the dividing line between Holland and Germany. This half was Germany, this half was Holland.
And were you fighting at that time?
Well, we got fought up too there, and we bivouacked or stayed out there in a field outside of that, and here come American planes, 2 American planes, and they start strafing us out there. Whenever we found out, they shot them down, and found out later that the Germans had captured 2 American planes and rebuilt them. And that's where they're strafing us.
Oh, we darn.
Now, see, we didn't go we crossed Jülich, and then here we go up to, now there's the Rhine, where we crossed. When we crossed Jülich,
This is the Rhine right here.
yeah, okay, but the Ruhr is right in here, where we crossed.
Okay.
See. And then we went up to here. Now this is a horseshoe. I don't know what the horseshoe is. One of these places they call the horseshoe, because I remember we come right up across the Rhine, went right down to Dusseldorf.
Mm-hmm.
And Koblenz.
Yeah.
Or up this way, we went north.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a map for every battle that was in. Attacked on. I don't remember that town.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at this. I don't remember that town.
Well,
We were the first army of occupation.
oh,
After that, now there's that Bornheim I told you about. See.
all right. And where were you coming in, from over here?
Yeah, see, this shows we come into Bornheim and Roar River. See. And we had to cross that Roar River.
Mm-hmm.
The Roar River is out there, and that was tough. Tough to get there. But you know, yeah, this is.
Kostler, that's 116.
Yeah. See, well, I thought it shows. There's one that shows Jülich where we crossed.
Well,
Yeah.
we don't,
No, there's a picture in there of that. No, you don't want that. Of that bridge where that hill.
uh-huh. Okay, well now, Estel, I'm going to ask you to go over there and sit down. I want to ask Marge a few questions.
Okay.
Marge, speaking as an old friend, my kissing cousin. Estel tells us when you were married, or let's go back over that. When was that? When did you get married?
1933.
Had you known him in high school, and
No.
how'd you happen to meet?
We met in swimming down behind the poor farm.
Down on the Sugar Creek.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell him who was there.
Yeah, tell us who was there.
Purdue basketball player. Coached UCLA for so many years.
Oh,
Johnny Wooden.
Johnny Wooden.
Sat
Okay.
in the middle of the creek. Johnny Wooden when I met him.
Yeah. And how Johnny Wooden happened to be there?
Oh, he came down here.
A lot of people there.
Came down
People
quite
showed
often.
Uh-huh.
Went swimming out there.
Yeah. Now, you were married then in 33.
Mhm.
Those were kind of tough times.
They sure were.
Did you have a job?
No.
And when did your first?
Yes, I did have a job. I worked at the Golden Mill.
We worked at the Golden Rule.
Yeah.
That used to be up on the corner of Washington and Main. Is that this?
No, not on the corner. It was next to
Next to the
Reasoners.
Next to Reasoners. That's right.
Yeah.
The bank was on the corner.
Yeah.
And you,
Across the street.
all right. And when did the kids come along?
Yeah, Sharon was born in 35, and Jay Frank was born in 38.
Oh,
They were 6 and 9 when he went into the army.
all right. Were you kind of nervous about his number coming up? You remember that?
Yes and no. He had taken this job in Indianapolis, and we would have been there yet probably when he found out he was going to be called, he wanted to come back so the children and I would be left in Crawfordsville.
Uh-huh.
So Delcamp was coming over there about every week trying to talk him into coming back. So we just came back.
Yeah. And where were you living at that time?
907 West Main.
That's 907, that's down near, what street is that? Near Blair, somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you own your own home, or were you renting?
We didn't right then. I bought it while he was still in the Army.
Uh-huh.
That was one of the big things. It's a big thing to buy a house with your husband across the sea.
How did you finance it?
War bonds.
War bonds, that you
I hated to cash them, but I did.
uh-huh. And
But things were not that expensive then.
uh-huh. What kind of a house was it?
Oh, it's a big house. It had 9 rooms.
That would have been on the
South side.
south side of the street. It had 9 rooms.
Uh-huh.
And then when Estel, his number finally came up, did you have any time there that you get prepared for this?
Not a whole lot. But
And-
he had such a good attitude about the whole thing. We didn't have too much trouble.
Uh-huh.
He just wouldn't let me go to the station to see him off.
Uh-huh.
His sister and dad went with him.
Uh-huh.
They left me home.
Yeah. And went to the station. Where'd they go? Down here?
Indianapolis.
Down to the, went to the Big Four then?
Indianapolis.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
go down to the station, left from that station down where Crawford's Groceries.
No, he left from Indianapolis.
Bus.
Oh, you took a bus over?
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't even go down with the bus to see him out? No.
He didn't want me there.
Uh-huh. Did you have any kind of counseling or anything like that? There were probably other wives who had husbands off in the service. Did you
Oh,
know?
Dr. Taylor was my mainstay. He was the
Now, who was
minister
he?
of the Methodist Church.
Dr. Howard Taylor, is that his name? C. Howard Taylor?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
He was great. And Ted Gronert
Uh-huh.
talked to me quite often. And Herman Wright, when I was working for Cass. Cass was Grady Chadwick.
Yeah.
He'd come in the office and sit on my desk and tell me, he said, "Now don't let people tell you that it's easy and all this." He says, "It's tough."
Mhm.
But he was great.
Yeah.
He was great.
Now, did you, your kids were growing up, or were you working while Estel was gone?
My mother was living with us at that
Uh-huh.
time. I lost my dad and she was with us, so
Uh-huh.
I had a good babysitter.
Yeah. What about getting food and that sort of thing for taking care of the household? Did you have an automobile?
Yes.
Did you have any? Were you able to use it much? Any kind of rationing? Or?
Oh, I didn't have any trouble. I didn't go anyplace.
Uh-huh.
I just stayed home. And before he went to the war, Estel always served our dinner. And after he left, Jay Frank wanted to serve. He was only 6. We put him on catalogs, and he served the dinner. So it took us all evening to eat.
While Estel was off, how was life here in Crawfordsville? What was it like?
Oh, it was pretty good. We had good neighbors down the street and friends, Bill and Kate Wilson. And they,
Did they live at the same place they live now?
yeah.
So they were pretty close.
Oh, yes. And my kids would go down there and Sandy would come down to our house. And every evening we had ball games in our backyard.
Uh-huh.
And I pitched for them. Jake Frank said I lifted up the wrong leg, but I got the ball out. So. But our backyard was just a great thing. And Jay Frank was really too small to mow it much, so I mowed it. So he wanted to cement it and paint it green.
And did you hear from Estel often?
Pretty often. And the post office was great. When a letter would come in from him, he'd call. And when he was in the hospital, I didn't hear from him for 6 weeks. And they called me the minute the letter came in.
Yeah. Who was the postmaster at that time?
Probably the former sheriff, remember?
I can't remember.
Yeah. But the postmaster would call you when a letter.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
wives, did you keep in touch with them who had husbands off in the service?
Well, yeah.
Can you remember any of those?
No, see, I didn't know which ones were with Estel.
Uh-huh.
See, Marion Cooper was there, and John Fraser, and, oh, I was with Ruth an awful lot.
Ruth Fraser? He was a dentist here in
Yeah,
Collinsville.
yeah.
Had he been practicing here before the war? I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
What, did he practice here before the war?
No, he bought,
I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I'm trying to think. I don't know, Warren bought him out. I don't remember.
But I think Warren brought him out.
Yeah, Warren did.
Yeah. What about the doctors? Were there some other doctors, were there doctors from here off in the service?
Dr. Millis, our family.
Dr.
doctor
Millis?
was gone, yeah.
And who took Dr. Millis's place as your family doctor? Well, he was gone.
Burks, Jess Burks.
Jasper.
Yeah, he was great.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't know any of these other wives, you didn't socialize with any of these other wives who had their husbands off in the
Well,
service?
various ones, but I can't remember who they
Can't
were.
remember who
That's
they-
a long time ago.
I know it. Well.
We had a terrible time Christmas time, I remember.
Did you?
Yes.
When's
G.
that?
Frank wanted a baby elephant, and Sharon wanted a baby sister.
Uh-huh.
It was a little difficult. But Estel's sister lived here then, Margie, she's back here now, and she'd come down. And that Christmas, we tried to serve all the people we knew that had people in the war, and all of our family that didn't have any place to go.
Yeah.
We had 24 that Christmas, so that kept us kind of busy.
In your house?
Yeah,
That would have been the Christmas of '44, wouldn't it?
yes.
Uh-huh.
But my kids were great. They were just great.
Where's J. Frank now? Where?
He's president of Rice Chadwick Rubber Company in Killbuck, Ohio.
In where?
Killbuck, Ohio.
Killbuck, Ohio.
He lives in Millersburg, yeah.
Of course, Sharon is still here.
Sharon's still here.
And, you spoke of Ted Gromer. Ted was over the college.
Yeah.
How did you happen to know him?
Well, he got in touch with me when Estel was over there.
Oh.
And he was a great help. And whenever we'd read, or as Gabriel Heater would come on, then he'd call me and
Mhm.
we'd talk about it.
Mhm.
And Dr. Taylor was just great. When Estel came back on this 10-day leave, Dr. Taylor talked with him quite a while.
Mhm.
And he told me, he said, I don't think you need to worry about Estel. He says he knows what he's doing and what he's going for. He said, I think he'll be all right. His
Mhm.
attitude was just
Mhm.
exceptional.
I take it you've been regular members of the Methodist Church,
Oh,
First
yeah.
Methodist Church
Yeah.
over here.
Sunday school and church under
Oh.
Dr. Taylor.
Yeah. He's been going a good
Oh,
long time.
yes, good long time, but I'll never forget him.
Yeah, that was Perk Allen's father-in-law.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Any further recollections you got at Crawfordsville at that time, March?
Oh, it was great. Everybody was so nice to us, Dave and Sally Gerard particularly. But we'd go, when he was in this camp, Atterbury, they'd bus him up to the baseball games in Indianapolis.
Mhm.
And Kate and Bill would take me over, and we'd sit there through the ball game and hold hands. And he'd get on the bus and go back to Atterbury, and I'd come back. I got a little tiresome. We sure were glad to see him home.
Yeah. Well, I think that's about all that we want to cover. We sure do thank both of you for doing this. Before I close here, I want to say a few words about the people that have been working on this. We want to, we're particularly thankful for what the American Legion has done for the Historical Society and the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Claire Chamberlain in particular, and who has coordinated this thing. Ed Miller has been the cameraman on a good many of these things, and of course Mike Hall here of the Historical Society. And so, as Bob Wernle is going to say, we'll close this one out. And sure do, thank you for
Well,
coming in.
we thank you.